Mission to keep Butch and Sonny aboard the International Space Station and bring the Boeing Starliner home.
Two astronauts were supposed to be on the International Space Station for 8 days, may be stuck there until next year.
Two astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, who were sent to the International Space Station for a test flight with the Boeing Starliner, are yet to return. These astronauts have been stuck in space for months for what is supposed to be an 8-day mission, and they have not been able to see their family and friends. While NASA told the world they have been in communication with these astronauts and are hoping to bring them home, Elon Musk, tech billionaire and owner of SpaceX, had something that was not very comforting to say. He suggested that the astronauts were no longer with us. What did he mean? We are about to find out. Before NASA decided who was going for the mission, they had vetted deeply and wanted to use members of the Navy who had experienced space already. When the test flight was about to take place, they picked Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams for the trip to the International Space Station. Wilmore had joined the Navy and became a test pilot, racking up more than 8,000 hours of flying time and 663 aircraft carrier landings. During his tenure as a fleet naval officer and aviator, Wilmore completed 4 operational deployments. He has flown missions in support of Operations Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and Southern Watch over the skies of Iraq, as well as missions over Bosnia in support of United States and NATO interests. He was an experienced pilot and handled dangerous situations very well. Wilmore's first space flight was in 2009, with a mission completed in 10 days, 19 hours, 16 minutes, and 13 seconds, traveling 4.5 million miles in 171 orbits and returning to Earth. He had a second space flight under his belt in 2014, along with cosmonauts Elena Serova and Alexander Samokutyaev, launching the International Space Station in a Soyuz spacecraft from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Suni, on the other hand, who is a Navy veteran, has logged more than 3,000 flight hours in over 30 different aircraft. She joined NASA in 1998 after serving in the Navy for over a decade, retiring as a captain. She also worked in Moscow with the Russian Space Agency on the Russian contribution to the space station and with the first expedition crew. Williams has spent a total of 322 days in space over the course of her 2 missions. She also once held the record for the most spacewalks done by a female, with 50 hours and 40 minutes of cumulative spacewalk time. So NASA had their right of experience to the cosmos. In June, NASA was ready to do a test flight with the Boeing Starliner they had been prepping for long. They had funded the development of the capsule and SpaceX's Crew Dragon to stop using Russia's Soyuz shuttles. In June, Wilmore and Williams blasted off to the International Space Station, and their mission was supposed to take 8 to 10 days. However, the Boeing Starliner had other plans. The 2 cosmonauts had gotten to the International Space Station when they realized helium leaks in the capsule's propulsion system and significantly degraded thrusters, which are important for re-entry. This meant that the astronauts had no way of getting back home if the thrusters were not fixed. They have been carrying out tests and gathering data, both in space and back on Earth. They hope to pin down the root of the problems and find a way to return the astronauts home safely on Starliner. After more than 2 months of investigation, NASA decided it was too risky to return Wilmore and Williams to Earth aboard Starliner. So, 8 days turned into a month, and then 2, and then 3, till it was 6 months. NASA had originally planned for Starliner to undock from the ISS and return to Earth on the 14th of June, but they ended up undocking in September without the astronauts. After successfully undocking from the International Space Station, Starliner re-entered the atmosphere, releasing about 3 parachutes and deploying 6 airbags before hitting the ground. With no definite timeline for their return, a lot of citizens wondered if the cosmonauts were still alive like NASA claimed, or if something else had happened and the space agency kept everyone in the dark. Where are Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams? 10 years before the Starliner brouhaha, NASA had offered Boeing and SpaceX $4.2 billion and $2.6 billion, respectively, to develop spacecraft that would be used to transport American astronauts to the International Space Station for missions. This station displayed the groundbreaking advancement of technology because who would have thought the world would have a floating lab away from the natural human habitat of Earth, where a lot of activities affecting various parts of the Earth can be controlled. This station is maintained by 5 major space agencies around the world, namely NASA, Roscosmos, ESA, CSA, and JAXA. There was a time when traveling to space was an impossibility. But now, the world has created the biggest structure in space where astronauts can travel and get important experiments done. It was like magic. Working on their Dragon spacecraft, SpaceX managed their budget efficiently and successfully launched a series of spacecraft to the cosmos. Boeing, on the other hand, had a bigger budget but successfully launched 0 spacecraft. So, NASA and Boeing hoped that Starliner would be the best spacecraft since they spent about $1.5 billion above budget. It had to be the best. There were impressive factors about the Boeing spacecraft that suggested efficiency. It had a reusable crew capsule and an expendable service module. The Starliner could also accommodate a crew of 7. More importantly, it could remain docked to the ISS for up to 7 months, pending the time required to complete any experiment. It seemed like the perfect spacecraft. However, there were many setbacks. Before launch, the Starliner harbored software problems, valve problems, and even weakness in certain joints within the parachute system and combustible materials in the wiring harnesses. To make matters worse, Boeing engineers were arrogant and unwilling to take criticism. SpaceX Crew Dragon had minimal problems even as the underdog. The engineers were willing to work with the budget they were given, and they had a CEO who was crazy about the cosmos. Elon Musk had built SpaceX from scratch after he kept satisfying his insatiable hunger for knowledge and life away from Earth. He also wanted to reduce the cost of launching a rocket to space. Since its founding in 2002, the company has made numerous advancements in rocket propulsion, reusable launch vehicles, human spaceflight, and satellite constellation technology. When Starliner could not accomplish the reason why it was sent to the International Space Station, everyone was disappointed. They had spent so much on the spacecraft and even went over budget for nothing. It also raised questions about Boeing's engineering abilities. Were these engineers worth the hype, or did Boeing just create an overhyped brand? Boeing was supposed to be the reliable giant of American aviation and space travel, and now they could not handle launching one spacecraft to the low orbit of the cosmos and bringing it back without any trouble. Boeing's reputation was ruined. Nobody knew if they could ever come back from this setback. This was their one chance to prove they still had their footprint in the game of aviation and space travel. Everything was a mess. This was not how the American Space Agency hoped the mission would end. Maybe NASA should just focus on SpaceX, since they were the only crew making actual progress. And that's what they did. After months of delay and unnecessary time in the International Space Station, NASA announced that Williams and Wilmore would be returning to Earth with the SpaceX Crew 9 when they would be coming back from their mission in early 2025. SpaceX. Crew 9 was part of the Crew Dragon series Elon Musk and his team of engineers had been developing. It is the 9th operational NASA commercial crew program flight to the International Space Station, ISS, and the 15th crewed orbital mission for a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. The flight was originally planned to deliver 4 crew members: NASA astronauts Zena Cardman, commander, Nick Hague, pilot, and Stephanie Wilson, mission specialist, along with Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, mission specialist, to the ISS for Expedition 72, a 6-month science mission. This plan had been confirmed before the Boeing Starliner flying Wilmore and Williams launched, because the same spacecraft was expected to bring them back. But as Starliner failed, NASA decided to attach Williams and Wilmore to the Crew 9 flight, which would launch with 2 on board instead of 4. The Dragon spacecraft, named Freedom, carrying the Crew 9, made its way into the cosmos in September to end the mission in March 2025. While the rescue plan for William and Wilmore has been confirmed, where are the 2 astronauts and what are they doing now? While most people on the ground harbored the feeling of anxiousness, Williams and Wilmore handled their mission mishap well. They did not panic and they followed instructions given to them by the latter. Although they had initial problems docking to the International Space Station, they were able to dock and get settled in this science lab that defied gravity. They have integrated as part of the team on board the space station, which means they're performing routine maintenance tasks and conducting science experiments daily. According to NASA, they have also conducted specific research on fluid physics, plant facility maintenance, robotic operations, and observations of Earth. They did not get a chance to spend the holidays with family and friends, but they are putting their time in the cosmos to good use. The ISS has 6 dedicated labs for experiments, and astronauts wear heart, brain, or blood monitors to measure their responses to the challenging physical environment. NASA has also suggested that life in the International Space Station is only a little different from life on Earth. There are various systems in place for astronauts to survive: fans, air conditioners, electronic communications equipment, and carbon dioxide removal systems. The astronauts exercise about 6 days a week and 2 hours daily for those who are working long hours. Any crew at any time use 2 treadmills that they must strap into to stop themselves from floating away, and a cycle ergometer for endurance training. 3 different machines help to counter the effect of living in zero gravity, which reduces bone density. Food and other supplies are sent out to the station on a routine basis. Every crew member in the station has a phone booth-sized corner for sleeping. They are strapped into their sleeping bags so that they don't float away. Williams and Wilmore love photography, and they have taken hundreds of photographs from the space station. They have also tried to connect with family and friends via emails, text, and video calls. Sometimes, family members are allowed to send sentimental foods along with routine supplies for their loved ones in the space station. The veteran astronaut's ordeal with Starliner is a clear reminder of how quickly things can go from good to bad in the cosmos. Delays and issues with spacecraft, while unexpected, are one of the possibilities that all astronauts face when they set off. Sometimes, when you think you've done everything right, something else pops up out of the blue. A little lack of attention to detail or wrong timing can be destructive, or even fatal. So every astronaut must learn some form of maintenance to preserve life in the space station. What do you think about Butch and Suni's life in space? Would you like to go on space travel? Thank you for watching till the end. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more updates. And while you're still here, click the video on your screen for more mind-blowing videos.